Hello, my name is Carrie Sands. I am currently a teacher at Flagler Palm Coast High School in Flagler County, Florida, where I teach 8 different technology classes each day. When my journey with Full Sail began many moons ago, I was teaching 5th grade at a local elementary school. I loved my job but was feeling bored and needed a new challenge. At that time, I was teaching in a one-to-one MacBook environment that was almost paperless, but that wasn't enough. I knew that I could and should be doing so much more for my students, but just needed someone to show me the way. Soon after beginning my first course, Multiple Learning Theories, I realized that I had made the right choice and this was exactly what I needed. Learning about brain-based learning, multiple intelligences, and social constructivism really got me thinking about what the possibilities could be, and honestly have helped mold my own educational philosophies today. During my training and motivation development course, I began to formulate ideas for my capstone project. At the time, I was thinking about pursuing professional development needs of teachers or collaboration in the classroom as possible topics. Leaning towards professional development as my topic, I began to lead the creation and implementation of several professional development sessions for teachers at my school. During my education, design, and evaluation course, I learned about the ADDIE process. For the final project in this course, I created a website that functioned as a tutorial for teachers to learn how to use GarageBand. I did end up using this website with teachers, so this allowed me to further explore one of my possible capstone project ideas. During my interpersonal and intrapersonal skill development and technology environments course, I really got to dig into my first big group project. Group projects had never been a problem for me, but the distance and time zone differences did add a few new obstacles. It was during this course that I learned the true value of using Google Docs for group assignments. I would not have survived this group project or the many that were later to come without it. It was also during this course that I began to change the direction of my capstone project. Using Google Docs had been such a tremendous learning experience for me that I wanted to share it with my students. So melding this new learning experience and my recently adopted educational philosophies came the new and improved capstone project idea, 21st Century Skills through Project-Based Learning. The filmmaking principles and music theory courses were also invaluable learning experiences. I have since created countless tutorials and videos which would not have been possible without the lessons learned in these courses. All of this newfound knowledge really got my head swimming and made me begin to rethink my career choice. I had always loved my kiddos, but was starting to imagine what would be possible if I had high school students instead. Soon after, I applied for and got my job as a technology teacher at our local high school. After beginning my job at the high school, I quickly realized that students today are graduating without some of the essential skills that would help them to become successful members of our 21st century society. Our society requires our graduates to be able to communicate effectively, think critically, problem solve creatively, and collaborate well. I believe integrating technology in a project-based environment where teachers act as facilitators rather than lecturers will allow these essential skills to be nurtured along with the curriculum in hopes of producing well-rounded and well-prepared graduates. In an effort to increase standardized test scores and meet state and federal mandates, these important 21st century skills often fall to the wayside. Educators often believe that we can increase test scores or teach 21st century skills, but doing both would be too hard. Our students deserve better, and we owe it to them to try. The purpose of my capstone project was to prove that with changes in the delivery of classroom instruction, students would learn these 21st century skills, which would better prepare them for a successful life in the 21st century. I chose to use Google Docs and iChat for my action research because these have been the most meaningful tools in my own learning. My favorite part of the capstone project was watching the transformation that happened within my own students. I never made the technology tool the focus of the lessons. The focus remained on the standards, and the tool just became the means to help us get to the end. By the time that we had reached the end, though, my students had learned more than just the standards. Their communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills had all increased more than I could have ever imagined. I had only hoped to improve on their collaboration and perhaps communication skills, so this was all an added bonus. The projects that were included in my action research saw much higher turn-in rates and overall higher final grades than average as well. During Cycle 1, most students in my app creation class reported that they enjoyed group work, but had a hard time divvying up the responsibilities in a fair manner. Most of them had also never used iChat for educational purposes and seriously doubted its potential. During Cycle 2, after analyzing the data from my app creation students on the final post-assessment and comparing it to earlier assessments, I found that most students enjoyed the way that we had used iChat in the classroom and reported that it was definitely useful in helping them collaborate with each other. Some of my shy students liked the option of using iChat instead of face-to-face conversations. A few students even figured out how to use iChat to message me from other classrooms or even from home to ask me questions, effectively extending the bounds of learning outside my classroom walls. Interestingly, most students reported in the final post-assessment that they didn't think iChat would become a distraction in the classroom, even though, according to the pre-assessment data, most students thought it was going to be a huge distraction. I was also pleasantly surprised to also see an increase in project scores and turn-in rates. My students seemed to respond well to the ability to collaborate with their peers. This would lead me to believe that students can learn to collaborate and even like to collaborate. They just need to be taught how to do it. During Cycle 1, after analyzing the pre-assessment data with my Web Foundation students, I found that not all students preferred to work in groups, and almost 60% of my students preferred direct instruction on how to use Google Docs. This tells me that the majority of students prefer me to explain the use of Google Docs even if they've used it before. After analyzing the data from Cycle 2 with my Web Foundation students, I realized that more students turned in completed projects and earned higher grades than normal. Most of my students reported that they enjoyed working with Google Docs. Many students didn't realize the collaborative nature of Google Docs before this and reported that they benefited from the organization that took place due to their use of Google Docs. Students also said that they were able to communicate and collaborate with their peers from anywhere, alleviating issues due to absences. I was also a bit disappointed by the lack of actual collaboration that happened. Students definitely collaborated, but not to the extent that I had hoped. In the future, I will need to be more specific about my expectations regarding collaboration. From all of this data, I can conclude that teaching the standards and 21st century skills can both be done at the same time. Students crave the use of technology tools, and with direction on how to use these tools, they can achieve much more. Weaving 21st century skills throughout a standards-based lesson taught through project-based learning takes advantage of a student's natural curiosity and can lead to a much deeper understanding of the content. Teaching them how to use each tool in a productive manner can also help them overcome some of their qualms about group work. Mark Prensky said that it is not enough to be a digital native. One must strive to be digitally wise. Teaching our students how to use technology to their advantage and how to effectively communicate, collaborate, think critically, and problem solve will help our students to become digitally wise, successful members of the 21st century society. I believe that most, if not all, of the literature that I read supported my capstone project. Kim, Bell, Balbalka, Harada, and Yamamoto were just some of the experts that I discovered during my literature review that had also found that project-based learning, when implemented correctly, led to increased content knowledge and 21st century skills. The experts suggested that to get the most from project-based learning, the teacher should take on the role of a facilitator to take advantage of a student's natural curiosity. During my own research, I was also very careful to act as a facilitator in hopes of attaining the same results. Downs and Bishop found that students today have a very different learning style than yesterday's students. Today, students learn best through trial and error, process information faster, insist on multitasking, and demand authenticity in their work. Downs and Bishop found that the traditional patterns of learning had been transformed through constant access to technology. I would like to think that the findings of my capstone project will one day be used to transform other classrooms, much like my literature review research has helped to transform my own. Helping my own students to achieve success is one thing, but to know that my project could live on and potentially impact many other classrooms and hundreds of students is a pretty powerful feeling. I've applied to share my findings during a session at the Florida Educators Technology Conference next January. The time spent on my capstone project has encouraged me to challenge the status quo and to update my teaching style to meet the varying needs of today's learners. John Dewey once said that if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. I couldn't agree more. We are preparing our students for a very different world, which requires a very different skill set. Next year, I will be leaving the classroom and taking on a new role at my high school as the director of our brand new New Tech Academy. This academy will function as a school within our traditional high school. It will be based on authentic project-based learning and a technology-driven environment. I guess you could call this Cycle 3, but on a much larger scale. I can't wait to begin this new endeavor and feel confident that my capstone project and time spent at Full Sail has helped to prepare me for what lies ahead.